Typhon, a mighty and terrifying giant. Long ago, when the world was still young and people were just beginning to settle the earth, there was an ancient and terrifying giant named Typhon. His story is shrouded in the darkness of legend and mystery, but one thing is certain: he was one of the most powerful creatures that ever lived on Earth. The story of Typhon's birth begins with two great forces of nature: Gaia, the goddess of the earth, and Tartarus, the god of the underworld. Gaia responds to the defeat of her child Titansin in a battle with the Olympian gods, whom Zeus had imprisoned in the depths of Tartarus. She decided to create a creature that could stand up to the king of the gods himself. This is how Typhon appeared. According to another version, Typhon was born directly from the bowels of the earth, like a volcanic eruption. In any case, the birth of Typhon was associated with the power of the elemental forces of nature. There is another lesser-known version, according to which Typhon was a curse imposed by Uranus, the sky god, on the earth. Uranus, being the father of the Titans, was angry that his children had rebelled against him and seized power. So, he cursed the earth, promising that one day it would give birth to a being that would destroy all his enemies. Thus came the idea that Typhon was not just a creation of Gaea and Tartarus, but the embodiment of an ancient curse directed against the Olympian gods. One description of the myth states that Hera was known for her jealousy and desire for power, and when Zeus was again unfaithful to her, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She turned to the earth, Gaea, and asked her to allow her to produce a child on her own who would be as powerful as any of the children of Zeus. Earth agreed and gave Hera a special herb called eruption. This herb had an amazing property: it allowed a woman to become pregnant without the involvement of a man. Hera ate this herb and soon discovered that she was expecting a child. However, the child she carried under her heart was not at all what she expected. Instead of a beautiful baby, Hera gave birth to a terrifying creature called Typhon. When Hera saw her son, she realized that she had made a mistake. She tried to get rid of Typhon, but he was too strong and cunning. So, she decided to hide him away from the eyes of gods and men by sending him to the far reaches of the earth. Outwardly, Typhon was a truly terrifying creature. His body consisted of many snake-like heads, each of which could spew fire and smoke. Some sources claimed that he had wings that allowed him to fly above the ground like a giant dragon, instead of legs rings of snakes. The voices of his heads could sound simultaneously like the roar of a storm, the roar of a lion, and the screech of thousands of snakes. But the most important thing was its incredible strength. Typhon was so powerful that even Zeus himself feared meeting him. He could cause earthquakes, volcanoes, and devastating storms with his breath. It is said that his eyes emitted lightning that could burn everything in its path. Once Typhon was born, regardless of the version of his origin, he grew quickly and became incredibly powerful. His goal was to overthrow Zeus and establish his power over the world. Typhon believed he was entitled to the throne because of his origin and power. Zeus, upon learning of Typhon's intentions, decided to act immediately. He gathered his brothers and sisters, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, Hestia, and others, and called them to arms. Together they set out to meet Typhon, preparing for a great battle. There are several descriptions of Typhon's fight with Zeus, but they all end in Typhon's defeat. One version tells us the first phase of the battle took place on land. Typhon used his ability to cause earthquakes and spew lava to destroy cities and villages. He also unleashed fiery arrows from his many mouths, creating fire and devastation. Zeus answered him with lightning bolts that he hurled from the top of Mount Olympus. These lightning bolts were so powerful that they could pierce rocks and cause huge explosions. However, Typhon was invulnerable to the lightning bolts, and every time Zeus hit him, he just laughed and continued his attack. The second phase of the battle moved into the sky. Typhon flew up on his huge wings and began to attack Zeus from above. He unleashed a torrent of fireballs that raining down on Olympus, causing destruction and panic among the gods. Zeus answered him with counter-fire using his famous shield, the Aegis. This shield was made from the skin of an Amazon and had magical properties to repel any attack. Zeus used the Aegis to protect himself and his companions from Typhon's rain of fire. The third phase of the battle took place in the sea. Typhon submerged himself in water and began to create huge waves and tsunamis that threatened to flood the entire world. He also summoned sea monsters such as Kraken and Leviathan to aid him in the battle. Zeus summoned his brother Poseidon, who ruled the seas, to help him. Poseidon used his trident to break the waves and stop the tsunami. He also summoned sea creatures such as dolphins and seals to help fight Typhon's monsters. The final battle took place at the top of Mount Etna. Here Zeus and Typhon came face to face in a final attempt to decide the outcome of the battle. Both used all their strength and skill in an attempt to overpower each other. Zeus used his last reserves of energy, unleashing the most powerful lightning bolt he could create. This lightning bolt struck directly into Typhon's heart, causing a tremendous surge of energy. Typhon fell to the ground, badly injured, but still alive. Zeus then drew his sword and delivered the final blow, piercing through Typhon's chest. Typhon fell to the ground, bleeding and letting out his last breath. However, even defeated, Typhon continued to pose a threat. Its blood and remains have been the source of many troubles for humans. It is believed that it was from Typhon's blood that poisonous snakes and other dangerous creatures arose. Zeus, convinced of his victory, put Typhon in chains and threw him into the abyss of Tartarus, where he remained forever imprisoned. Zeus' victory over Typhon meant the final assertion of his power as king of gods. He proved his superiority over the old gods and established a new order in the world. However, the battle left traces. Mount Etna became the place of Typhon's imprisonment, where his spirit still causes eruptions and earthquakes. Another of the descriptions gives a version that it all began when Zeus first entered the battle, armed with his legendary sword. He struck a powerful blow at Typhon, wounding him and forcing him to retreat. The Thunderer gave Typhon no respite and began a pursuit that took them both as far east as Syria. There, however, the situation changed. Typhon, using his advantage in the number of arms and serpent rings, managed to envelop Zeus and restrain his movements. The beast took Zeus' sword and then, in a brutal act of cruelty, ripped out the tendons in the god's arms and legs, rendering him helpless. Typhon then imprisoned Zeus in a cave with a dragoness named Delphine as his guardian. It seemed that Zeus' situation was hopeless, because without tendons he could not move and fight. But Zeus was helped by Hermes, the messenger of gods, and Egipan, satyr patron of shepherds. They managed to get into the cave and steal Zeus' tendons, returning them to him. Zeus now regained his strength and could continue fighting. The freed Zeus resumed the battle with Typhon, and the fight broke out with renewed vigor. At this point, the goddesses of fate Moira intervened and decided to help Zeus. They offered Typhon to eat the unripe fruit, which weakened his strength, giving Zeus an advantage. Zeus now began to pursue Typhon, chasing him through different regions. First, they reached Thrace, where they continued to fight. Then the battle moved farther south to the island of Sicily. On Sicily, Zeus finally completed his mission. He used all of his remaining energy and strength to drop the huge mountain Etna on Typhon. This mountain completely buried the beast, forever imprisoning it in stone. In some cultures, Typhon was associated with various deities and forces of nature. For example, in Egypt, he was sometimes identified with Seth, the god of chaos and destruction, the personification of evil. Depicted in a very peculiar way, he was represented with the body of a man and the head of a mysterious animal, which is difficult to clearly identify. This animal had long ears, an elongated nose and a square face. It is suggested that it may have been a hybrid of several animals, such as a donkey, antelope, or jackal. He is considered the main opponent of the goddess Isis. He is the son of Cronus, a red-headed demon and father of the god Anubis. In Rome he was called Vulcan, the patron saint of fire and blacksmiths. Despite his monstrous origin, Typhon left behind descendants. It is known that the serpents that strangled Laocoon and his sons were direct descendants of Typhon. They acted at the will of the gods, particularly Athena and Poseidon, who wanted to punish Laocoon for his attempt to prevent the Trojan horse from entering the city. Laocoon was a priest of Apollo at Troy. When the Greeks left the camp near the walls of Troy, leaving behind a huge wooden horse, Laocoon warned the Trojans, telling them, "I fear the Danates, even those who bring gifts." He suspected that the horse might be a trap and advised the Trojans not to bring it into the city. In response to Laocoon's warning, the gods sent 2 huge serpents that came out of the sea and headed for the shore. These serpents were direct descendants of Typhon, who was known for their terrifying appearance and destructive power. They wrapped themselves around the bodies of Laocoon and his sons and strangled them. The horrible scene of the end of Laocoon and his sons served as a warning to the rest of the Trojans. Seeing that their priest and his family had left this world in such a terrible way, they decided that it was a sign from the gods and led the Trojan horse into the city. Subsequently, the Greek warriors hidden inside the horse came out at night and opened the gates of the city, allowing the main army to enter and take Troy. Typhon was the consort of Echidna, a half-woman half-snake. The name Echidna comes from the Greek word echidna, meaning snake. She was depicted as a terrifying creature with the upper half of a woman's body and the lower half of a snake's body. It dwelt in a deep cave, from which it came out to attack travelers, kidnap them and eat them. The offspring of Typhon and Echidna, although not as numerous as some other mythical creatures, include several famous monsters that became significant figures in Greek mythology. Cerberus or Kerberos was a 3-headed dog who guarded the entrance to the underworld, Hades. He allowed souls to enter the afterlife, but would not let anyone leave. Cerberus was known for his ferocity and was one of the most feared guards of Hades. The Lernaean Hydra was a multi-headed monster that lived in the swamps near the city of Lernae. Each head of the Hydra regenerated when severed, making it virtually invulnerable. Hercules had to fight it in one of his 12 feats. Orpheus was a giant 2-headed dog who served Typhon and his consort Echidna. He was Cerberus' brother and also guarded the entrance to the underworld. Chimera, a fire-breathing monster with the head of a lion, the torso of a goat, and the tail of a snake. It terrorized the inhabitants of Lycia until it was destroyed by Bellerophons. The Sphinx was a creature with the body of a lion, the wings of an eagle, and the head of a woman. She asked riddles of travelers who passed her lair, and destroyed those who could not answer correctly. The Sphinx was defeated by Oedipus, who solved her riddle. The Nemean lion was a huge and invulnerable creature that lived in the vicinity of the city of Nemea. The lion was destroyed by Heracles in the first of his 12 feats. Ephon was the eagle that pecked Prometheus' liver daily. All these monsters, being the offspring of Typhon, inherited his destructive nature and became symbols of danger and adversity. Thus, although Typhon was defeated, his legacy continues to live in the myths and legends of different peoples. His image symbolizes the power of nature and the danger that can lurk behind seeming tranquility.